No Game, No Life, Volume 6, Chapter 4, Part 2. 1 divided by 2 equals helpless. She never thought the day would come when she, an ex machina, would be telling herself to calm down. Attacking an ex machina was a sort of taboo.
Act just like a machine, just a counterattacker. Question: does Flugel have a task involving ex machina?
Activating language circuits long gone idle, she barely managed to act the part. But seemingly oblivious, Jabro continued. I do. It seems ex machina heads are, my, now as valuable as Draconia heads. Rarity 5. Bending her body as if vexed, Jabro went on. You see, following the defeat of Ehrenleif, even those in Avenheim have reached a consensus that it shall be taboo to lay hands upon ex machina, whereby the rarity of their heads has soared and soared, to the point that they are now platinum.
Warning: validity of consensus confirmed. Hostility to unit will result in significant consequences.
At her words, though, Jabro hiked up the corners of her mouth in reply. For a single pilfer, you say? Had she managed to keep her panic off her face? That was all she worried about, but Jabro continued without regard. I have confirmed no signs of ex machina in a 100-meter radius, which raises the terribly interesting question of why a single unit of ex machina, which normally operates in clusters, would be operating alone. Also, Jabro continued with a devilish smile, as an isolated unit should be able to perform your race's famous copycatting, I take this as a bonne occasion chance to seize a super rare merveilleuse tête. Might I be correct? Shui considered once again, without saying it, that this was the worst. Finding herself discovered by, of all races, the most outlandish, and of those most outlandish, the wildest and most overpowered of them all, she could only conclude that Riku had been right when he said that probability was nonsense. To think that the very first card she'd draw would be the Joker, the old maid. Now, I'll be chopping through your neck, so please don't move. There is no use resisting, so your cooperation will make this go more smoothly for the both of us. It's not as if ex machina have a concept of death after... I refuse. Pardon? Did I mishear you? Death. The word suddenly motivated Shui's mouth. Riku's rule, too. None may die, so she couldn't die. What's more, the fear that death inspired, that she'd never see Riku again, denied the request. I don't want to die. I can't die. As Jabril's eyes stretched even wider, Shui continued. Unit disconnected. Scrap. No value as ex machina. So, I beg you, please look the other way. But Shui didn't realize she'd made the worst possible choice. She'd not adequately grasped what hovered before her, the wildest member of an already outlandish race. What? A machine that fears death? Not only that, but an ex machina begging? And further, you say you are disconnected. A defective item? Rarity 5 doesn't begin to cover this. Everyone will be so envious. The duels will be endless. Watching Jabro drool while radiating a lethal hostility, Shui had to admit failure. Diplomacy was something Riku could have pulled off. She shouldn't have let go of his hand, but Final warning. Yes, please proceed as you like, though the outcome will remain the same. Shui's eyes locked on Jabril, who materialized a sword woven of light and looked prepared to set upon her any time. I don't want to die. I can't die. If you're still going to kill me. Little by little, Shui murmured as resolution.
Analysis of respective forces. Enemy, Flugo, Jabril. Capacity unknown. Estimated double average Flugo. Friendly. Ex Machina Purifer. Power level less than 32% output of Comfer. Dedicated combat unit. In addition, friendly unit lacks Ex Machina's greatest weapon. Cluster supporting units. Armaments available are limited due to disconnection. 47 of 27,451. Probability of success non-existent.
Nevertheless, Riku's words came back to her. There's no such thing as zero when it comes to probability.
Laden. Launching code 1673B743E1F255. Script E. Loosen.
Loosening all the armaments she could at once, Shui declared. All armaments, forces, tactics, strategies online. Initiating supplication for life with maximum output. Oh my! I understand that Ex Machina is a race that analyzes and imitates the factors by which it is damaged. In response to Shui's declaration of war, Trevor replied with an expression that seemed to deride the gods themselves. But did one of your kind ever die of laughter? Now, that is a new one on me.
Interrupt. Short term. Battle. Only possible victory.
Shui concluded. She discharged all the armaments she'd prepped at once, compressing spirits into an ultra-enriched particle. A spirit particle so dense, any reasonable living thing, even an elf, would die instantly on contact. Overboost! Shui volatilized it, and in that instant, she disappeared from Drill's vision. Ultra-enriched spirits, given directionality, and volatilized for ultra-rapid acceleration. The volatilized spirits coughed out blue masses of dead spirits, sowing pollution in their wake, as they shattered the bounds of physics. That was how Ex Machina, a race incapable of utilizing magic, managed to use magic through the brute force employment of technology. The Shui moved at speeds approaching teleportation. Still. Surely, you don't really think that's enough to escape me? Drill scoffed, having shifted past distance itself to cut her off, as if mocking, toying with her. Jibril brought down her mountain-cleaving blade of light, but internally, Shui answered her assailant's question.
Why would I?
A suit armor! As the unblockable blade of light cleaved toward her, Shui volatilized the ultra-enriched spirits that had just produced her acceleration, meaning she hypercharged a force beyond physics, without directionality, producing an offensive barrier, killing the ultra-enriched spirits en masse, turning them into dead spirits. She unleashed a blue spherical particle membrane. That moment, the shock and energy exploded into the earth. It would have been enough force to wipe out a small city, but how inconsiderate. With a weapon that spews dead spirits, the environmental standards of this machine are rather questionable. Acute armor. Shui's barrier that annihilated most living things through shock and acute dead spirit pollution. Jabril shrugged it off by covering her face with a grimace as if brushing away so much dust. Shui silently concluded that it was just as she projected. Whatever Flugel might have been, as magic woven by Artosh, a Flugel could not have the maintenance of her substantiation poisoned by the obstacle to magic that were dead spirits. Still, do you think this will be enough to... What's this? Jabril was confused to find that, beyond the shock membrane of blue light that she'd just perceived, Shui wasn't there. Once more, Shui inwardly answered her opponent's query.
Why would I be?
At the same instant she'd launched Asiut armor, Shui had used Overboost again to gain some distance, and now she had her sights locked. For an individual ex machina to destroy Flugel was all but impossible. The probability was astronomically low, and even if by some miracle she succeeded, it would violate the rules Riku had laid down. Victory in a short-term battle. There was only one route: escape.
Loosen. Enderpo Krufin.
A weapon loathsome to Shui who, by employing it in one of Ex Machina's conflicts, had robbed Riku of his home. The greatest force in Shui's arsenal, which replicated the far cry of Eren life, the ultimate, fired at Jabril. A storm of dead spirits to defile the world vented as light erupted from her muzzle. Jabril stared into the radiance barreling toward her and was seared. Shui made a silent apology to Riku. He'd have to revise the map again. The single blast of Ender Pokrufen, at the same instant it landed on Jabril, rewrote the terrain. The blast of blue light ripped the landscape's crust, instantly vaporizing it. The reddened earth gas it became, forming a small-scale tsunami, and the ultra-hot sediment, reaching temperatures in the thousands of degrees, sailed in a blink to the stratosphere. A direct hit of that magnitude, sufficient to alter the shape of the planet, would leave not even a Dragonian unscathed. But Shui was under no illusions that this would be sufficient to put down her adversary. Einweg! At the precise moment she confirmed the hit, Shui launched her last armament. A space crusher, designed by Ex Machina to counter the shifting abilities of races such as Flugel and Elf. Just as its name suggested, the smashed space would create a unidirectional hole enveloping Shui's body, closing behind her. If she leaped to a distance outside the Flugel's detection range, even Jabril should not have been able to pursue her. But the farthest distance Shui could leap using Einweg was 100 kilometers, the same distance in which Jabril had claimed to be clear of Ex Machina. So it was impossible to predict Jabril's scanning range. We would have to engage her again when she arrived. Oh my! Where do you think you're going? Shui's mind froze. In the time before the smash space closed, 0.000046 seconds, not even a fraction of a second, Jabril had extended a hand, prying open the wormhole with brute force to peek inside. Hell's voice rang out of a mask of a face plastered with a smile. If your intent was escape, a more prudent move would have been to use the light and dust to obscure my vision, rather than attempting a long-distance leap. Oh, or could it be? Seeing the space she'd rent torn open once more by an even greater force allowed Shui to define a feeling previously unknown to her, as she transitioned from her firing position to a posterior plant. Did you expect your little attack would injure me? Definition: this is a nightmare.
It can't be. It can't. It can't. It's impossible. Granted, Enderpio is an imperfect reproduction of the power of Eren Leaf's far cry. It reproduces only 43.7%, per the Zeichner's report. But the ultimate one was one of the rulers, the three greatest of all Draconians. A far cry unleashed by such an individual at the cost of his life. Even 43%.
It seems you have underestimated me. You silly bit of scrap, you.
A direct hit. Couldn't leave her without a scratch. That couldn't.
However, I commend you for at least forcing me to erect a defense spell. Jabril's words made Shui doubt the functioning of her hearing apparatus. Flugel themselves were a kind of magic, woven by Artosh. Therefore, her right to maintain themselves, which might be called a defense spell, was always active. In fact, it was because of this that Shui had calculated she could breach it with Endokrokrufen. But this Flugel, no, we have a definition. This individual no longer fits in the Flugel category. This anomaly, Jabril, must have doubted the defenses granted by her creator Artosh, and deployed an even stronger defense. It wasn't the work of a Flugel. It was inconceivable. This individual was already beyond all. I had struggled to stay my hand so as to bring her head home safe and sound, but I have changed my mind. What did the anomaly just say? That she'd stayed her hand? It is beyond my ken whether you have something that can be called a brain. The anomaly faced the wide-eyed Sui, hiking up her skirt and lowering her body in a grateful curtsy, her face peeling like a bell, like an angel, but so much like a devil. But it seems that whatever you may have which could be likened to one has become appallingly swollen with pride. Allow me to cool it down a bit for you, forever. The bit of input Shui was capable of processing was that her right arm had been detached. Correction, that was inaccurate. Even Shui, a Purfer, one of the units most specialized in processing power, was utterly incapable of assimilating this. At best, she could read the damage report. Right arm lost. What had happened was beyond her ability to grasp. Her combat power had been annihilated, but... Oh my! I meant to strike your torso. Did my aim waver? Was this what Riku, what humans, called intuition? Despite a bit of lag, she realized that she had escaped critical failure by an abrupt evasive action that bypassed logic. What is it? Something feels amiss. The Shui had no way of knowing. Jabril was experiencing a strange conviction. A mere ex machina, just a lone Purfer, in fact, had survived her attack. Why was she operating alone? How had the unit survived her strike? So many interesting questions, but Jabril growled in a low voice that Shui could nevertheless hear. I have an unpleasant presentiment. I think it time that you hush now and be buried in the earth like the metal refuse you are. Hearing these words, issued with a malice infused with mass, Shui understood again. There was no such thing as zero in probability. She trusted in Riku, fought and fled, betting on odds from the quiet of Nirvana. But at this point, it wasn't even a question of probability anymore. Against this monstrosity, all further attempts at flight, at survival, using any matter of logic or absurdity, were futile. This was the assessment of her irrational thoughts, otherwise known as intuition. But, even so, Shui shook off her misgivings. Even so, she had to win. Shui, purportedly just a bundle of logic, admitted it clearly.
I don't want to die. I'm afraid to die. Riku.
She'd never see Riku again. At this prospect, she'd experienced a sensation of her thought circuits freezing over. But more than that, what Riku, her husband, and his comrades, the ghosts, had burned their skin and viscera for, had staked everything on, that singular victory.
It'll turn to defeat because of me.
She couldn't accept it. She could never acknowledge it. Then what to do? In this situation, how could she prevail? She processed fast enough to stop time. Until finally, Shui arrived at a move. If she thought of Riku, it was the basest of all solutions. The worst possible idea, which threatened to crush her with self-hatred. Even so, she, who had invited this hopeless situation, could only map out this one route to victory. So,
Unit identification number umlaut capital UC207 capital BR4F57T9-D. Requesting reconnection to Uber cluster Befeler 1.
communication. She transmitted to the Ex Machina cluster that once had discarded her. No response. Jabril was once more compressing light with eyes that conveyed she would not miss this time.
Retrying request. Analysis of life complete. No time. Synchronize. Reconnect.
After a seemingly eternal short time, she received a response.
Umlaut capital UC207 capital PR4F57T9. Unit has been permanently disconnected. Request denied.
At the sound of approaching death, Shui broadcast in what could be best described as a howl.
Request denial rejected. Urgent request for data synchronization. Forwarding to Enzig. Uber Ains, I know you lack permission to reject forwarding a request from Perfer to Enzig.
Shui contradicted, and ultimately outreasoned the Befeler of her cluster, but there was no response. Undeterred and irrepressibly provoked, Shui continued transmitting, as if screaming.
Uber Ains, no correction. You unreasonable ass. Really? I don't want to give it to anyone. This feeling belongs to me.
The error she'd received from Riku, so great that she couldn't contain it. The one that said she adored him, that she never wanted to leave him. A heart she decided she'd never share, because it was embarrassing. It belonged to her and no one else. And yet,
I'm saying I'll give it to you. Please get what that means. You jerk.
because there was no other path, Shui could think of no other way to atone for a mistake and allow Riku to win. So, forgetting it was a transmission, Shui screamed aloud.
Stop giving me shit! Just take this feeling and pass it on! Umlaut capital UC207 capital PR4F57T9. You are indeed broken. I know. You are inconsistent. You are incoherent. And yet you function. This is abnormal. Invalid. I know that, too. Therefore, you have been determined to represent valuable sample data.
That instant, Shui felt her severed connection, reconnected to the cluster, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years, a sharing of sensations among 437 units, including herself, rushed back to her.
You meet the conditions for a special exception. Data synchronization initiating.
The sensation of being a Rio Ex Machina, unity, many as one cluster, the one entity. Now that sensation of having the inside of her head peered into unreservedly felt abominable to her. Even so, for now, it was necessary. That was what she decided. Shui shook her head.
Caution. Until synchronization completes, do not perform any actions which could damage you.
The transmission had been about to continue, but a sudden cognizance stopped it short. Now that she was reconnected, all the units in Shui's Uber cluster grasped the situation. The enemy she confronted, the most powerful of the Flugel, Jabril. She felt all the units throw an error at the fact that Shui had faced the creature alone and was still operating. Shui laughed at the reaction.
I can't wait until synchronization completes.
Because the error they threw was a feeling. Astonishment. Wouldn't they be, though? Considering it logically, even if you discounted the fact that her opponent was the exceptional Jabril, a single prefer engaging a Flugel should have been impossible, shouldn't it? But this was reality, made possible by the heart she'd received from Riku, the ability to make the impossible possible, an incontrovertible fact, the tip of the iceberg.
Situation assessed. Umlaut capital U C 207 capital P R 4 F 57 T 9. Unrestricted access granted to all armaments possessed by Ex Machina.
The deployment network for all armaments possessed by Ex Machina, all 27,451 of them, was unlocked.
Use all arms and firepower necessary to prevent destruction before synchronization completes.
Shui responded with a smirk. In this case scenario, her response was something humans, things with souls, would have said.
Can't you say, stay alive?
Uber Ains did not know the conceptual difference between destruction and death, but
stay alive until all data is shared. This is a command. Rejection will not be accepted. Else.
Feeling something in that response, Shui thought.
They must understand now.
She raised her face to see the onrushing Reaper, Jabril.
Huh?
In the display,
time until synchronization completion. 4 minutes, 11 seconds. Can that be right? No data has ever taken more than 3 seconds to.
That was Shui's immediate reaction. But then she shook her head and got it. Of course it would take longer. She was synchronizing her soul. The sentiments, feelings, emotions, memories she'd received from Riku were more than she could hold. It stood to reason that, compared to any armaments, weapons, or information, it'd be far, far, far larger. Riku's face flitted through Shui's mind, and she smiled sadly. This was a game. She had to survive 4 minutes and 11 seconds. That is, 251 seconds. against death incarnate, Jabril. If she ran down the clock, she won, and if she died, she lost. Riku's least favorite game. All these feelings, this heart, everything of the life I've gained, born a machine.
I stake them all on these 251 seconds. Alice Luzin!
She unleashed all the arms, all the firepower, all the equipment possessed by Ex Machina simultaneously to the best of her ability, spreading foolish wings woven of tools built for no purpose other than slaughter and destruction. Giant wings of iron. Oh my! You intend to vent your frustration? By all means! So saying, Jabril, too, spread giant wings, as if ejecting light, and sneered. The irregular number, Jabril. Her power level yet unknown. Even with all the armaments of Ex Machina at her disposal, it would be impossible for Shui alone to destroy her. Such was her assessment. Maximum possible duration of survival, cannot estimate. But Shui nodded.
No problem. Form.
Combat algorithm for unknown. Launch. As they bore witness to what she constructed, Shui felt the cluster panting and gasping with errors. Shui wondered.
What's the surprise? If the enemy is unknown, all you have to do is anticipate everything you can anticipate. Don't try to understand. Don't try to calculate. Just believe what you feel and move. That's all. Survive the death before you for 251 seconds.
Her logic queried.
Can I?
The air replied.
Why ask? Humans have survived under these conditions for almost eternity. At this point, of what consequence is another 4 or 5 minutes?
Shui. Pardon? I didn't tell you. My name.
That's me. What Riku gave me. My precious, precious self.
Jabril peered back dubiously for a moment and responded with a slight bow. Is that so? I am Jabril, pleased to make your acquaintance. And with that, I bid you farewell.